National League champions in 2007. That quite an episode in baseball history here in Denver. And they've fallen on hard times a bit the last several years, but trying to climb back, rearrange things, and kind of readjust how the organization is built. Starting to develop a little bit better at the lower levels of the minor league system, trying to bring some homegrown products to the major leagues, and that's always a tough assignment when you've relied on bringing people from the outside in on a pretty consistent basis. But Rockies making the changes. They are biting the bullet, so to speak, in making that kind of a change.
Well, I know one of the things that's been pretty consistent is the fan support here. You know, they haven't had a lot of success over the last few years, but the fans have still been coming out and supporting them, and you've got to love that.
Yeah, that they have. It's a great sports city. As any of the Denver Nugget and Denver Bronco fans would tell you, Colorado Rockies fitting right into that. Well, the Rockies taking the field, and Mark McLemore is going to tell you about the Southwest Airlines Texas Rangers lineup tonight.
All right, leading off for the Rangers, Lionel DeShields will be in center field. Rougned Odor will bat second and play second. Prince Fielder will get the start at first and bat third. Adrian Beltre is the cleanup hitter, and he'll play third base. Josh Hamilton will hit fifth and play left field. Elvis Andrews will hit sixth and play shortstop. Shin Soo Choo is in right, will bat seventh. Robinson Chirinos will bat eighth, and Matt Harrison will do the pitching and hit ninth.
And that lineup for the Rangers will be facing the 30-year-old right-hander, Kyle Kendrick. Kendrick, born in Houston, raised in the state of Washington. 3-10, rather inflated ERA of just to the south side of 6. Features a sinker, a cutter, and a splitter as his three main pitches. He's had difficulty keeping the ball in the ballpark, especially here at Coors Field. This place notorious for the ball flying, and whether it's on the ground or in the air, it jumps pretty well. And Kendrick leading the National League in home runs allowed with 23 this year. In 42 innings in this ballpark, he's allowed 13 home runs. That's almost one every 3 innings.
That's, the Rangers will definitely try and take advantage of that tonight with the guys they have in this lineup.
And I guess, Mac, what that would tell you is looking at Kyle Kendrick and what he features, he's having trouble getting the splitter down in the strike zone, hanging a few of those, the sinker not sinking as well as he'd like it.
Yeah, and the key to that is, for the Rangers hitters to get him up in the zone, make him come up in the zone. If it's not working down low for him, they've got to get him up and just wait him out. He'll make a mistake sooner or later.
Now let's take a look at the Rockies defense behind Kyle Kendrick tonight. Drew Stubbs gets a start in left field. Charlie Blackmon in center. Brandon Barnes moves over to right. Within Rosario is playing at first base. DJ LeMahieu, the second baseman. Troy Tulowitzki, all-star shortstop. And Nolan Arenado is at third with Nick Hundley again behind the plate. Well, the Rockies won it last night by an 8-7 score. The Rockies walked it off with a base hit in the ninth inning after the Rangers fought all the way back from a 7-0 deficit after 2 innings. They tied it with a run in the top of the ninth, and then the Rockies walked it off in the bottom of that inning. Well, let's see if we can't have a little bit different outcome to tonight's ball game. Delino DeShields to start things off. Delino 264 the average, and Kendrick's first pitch is in for strike one. Delino, a little bit of a downturn of late. Remember, he came back off the disabled list, off the hamstring problems, and just fit right back into the top of that order. There's a check swing roller. Fair down the first baseline. It's going to be extra bases. Delino turning on the Jets. He is into second standing with an excuse me double. And he will take that.
Gotta love that. Look at him. He loves it. He'll take it. That's how you start. That's how you want to start a ball game off. See Kendrick trying to go away. Lino kind of, I don't really want that pitch, but since it's going to go into right field, I'll take it. Oh, you got to love that, leading the game off.
You know, like they say, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. It's better to be both of them if you can, but in this case, a very well-placed check swing. Now Rougned Odor will at least try to move over Delino DeShields to third. Rougned, a 254 average. He has 5 home runs, 27 driven in. And Odor, again, filling that number 2 slot very, very nicely for Jeff Bannister's club. Odor, since getting back into the lineup, coming back from AAA, has been a 354 hitter. Kendrick, a long look back to second. Ground ball right back to him. They've got DeShields hung up. Toss to Tulowitzki, who will run him. Now they're going to run the other way, and DeShields was able to stay in the rundown long enough to allow Odor to get all the way to second. No, Delino, after getting caught off, at least made something good happen to it. He wasn't tagged out right away, and a good job by Odor to keep on going, get himself into scoring position.
Yeah, when you get caught in a rundown like that, your job is to stay there as long as you possibly can, in order to get that runner or the batter runner around to where you were if you can. Obviously, it's a little tougher when you're in that rundown between third and home. But in this instance, Delino DeShields is quick enough, fast enough to stay in that rundown long enough to allow Odor to get into scoring position at second base.
So one out now with Rugnet out there. Prince Fielder will try and bring him home. Fielder, another multi-hit game last night. He has 39 of them this year. That is 6 more than Jason Kipnis, who has the second most. Inside for ball 1. Fielder will remind you with a .339 average, 57 RBI, tops on the ball club. He has gone 3 for 7 against Kyle Kendrick. Kendrick spending his entire major league career with the Phillies prior to this year with the Rockies. 2 balls and no strikes. Fielder still the top producer as far as runners in scoring position. Highest average in the American League at .395. He's got Odor out there at second. Rockies in a pretty big overshift. 3 players on the right side of the infield. That's in the dirt. Nice stop by Nick Hundley. And the count goes to 3-0. But Kendrick certainly doesn't appear as though he wants much to do with Prince Fielder in this at bat. He's got first base open, but he's also got a very, very hot Adrian Beltre to follow.
Yeah, you look at this lineup, with Prince there and Beltre behind him in that protection spot. You pretty much, have to pick your poison, especially when Beltre's swinging the bat the way he is right now. So Kendrick took a couple of shots trying to get inside on Prince, and after that, he was like, okay, well, first base is open. I'll unintentionally walking.
The danger you run, though, when you're trying to pitch around Prince Fielder is you really have to be careful not to throw the ball in the dirt to allow Odor to go ahead and move over to third. I mean, that's a distinct possibility when you're trying to be careful not to give him anything good to hit. The Fielder with a green light 3-0. He was going to have a hack at that if it was anywhere close. Hit that just over his right shoulder.
And I'm pretty sure that was going to be ball 4, but I think he just wanted to get loose a little bit.
In case you were wondering if he had the green light, Prince said, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
Well, it might be ball 5 right there. Ball so far inside.
3-1 the count. Pop foul. That one in on Prince's fists also. So Kendrick has gone from 3-0 to 3-2, and it didn't appear as though he was very interested in pitching to Prince. Fielder, you mentioned the runners in scoring position average, also has the highest average in the major leagues against right-handed pitching at .377. And Kendrick and Hundley, differing opinions on what the next pitch should be. Rich back in that batter's box. Kendrick reading the several series of signs. Now he finds one. And the payoff pitch coming. We'll try it again.
That does not feel good on the foot.
You're right on top of the foot.
Right there. That's never a good feeling.
Oh, goodness. Right on the toes, huh?
The pinky toe.
Ugh.
You just wouldn't think a big guy like that gets hit in the toe and it's going to cause that much pain. But it does.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be a lip reader to figure out what Prince was saying. Oh, my.
I think I heard it from here.
Kendrick ready for another 3-2 pitch. Just outside, ball 4. You know, all those pitches inside, he couldn't entice Prince to go outside with him. 1 out walk. There are 2 aboard now for Adrian Beltre. Adrian, of course, we chronicled it for you last night, enjoys hitting in the thin air of Denver an awful lot. For the year now, almost as high as it has been. He has been as high as 263. He's at 261 right now with 7 home runs and 25 RBI, 2 for 7 against Kendrick. But in this ballpark, Adrian Beltre, almost impossible to get out. He's a .401 hitter here in Denver. And he takes strike 1. 61 ball games in Coors Field. Our Ford leaderboard will show you. Jeffrey Hammond's the next closest. He's 5 points behind Beltre. Larry Walker, of course, played the majority of his career up here. A .381 career at Coors Field when he was it was his home ballpark.
You know, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's over 2,600 at bats, and he hit .381 at home.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing hitter. They played on some teams that could put a thumping on people.
They could. Saw one of those guys down there yesterday, Vinny Castilla.
Yeah. Castilla and Andres Galarraga and
Dante Bichette.
Yeah. Beltre takes strike 2 on the outside corner. It's now a ball and 2 strikes. Adrian discussing the last pitch with home plate umpire Tom Halyard. And you can see why he might have discussed that with him. That's a pretty good pitcher's pitch, and most hitters won't care for that too much. One and 2 with Odor at second, Fielder at first. Kyle Kendrick apparently getting paid by the hour. Nick Hundley, well, he gives him a sign that he'll agree to. Beltre shooting one down the right side, but foul. And that's something we have seen Adrian do more frequently in the last week. And Mac, you talked about the stats for Adrian over the last 8 ball games. He's now able to drive the ball the other way. And I don't think when he first came back into the lineup, he was able to do that consistently. No,
he really wasn't. He was out there and just trying to find some grass out there to drop something in. But now he's able to drive the ball to the right side, right center field, and even when he's looking for a pitch inside, he can get that hit through there and pull it down the left field line as well, like we saw last night.
Pitch stays inside. That was that cut fastball from Kyle Kendrick. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Kendrick, you might remember pitching against the Rangers as a member of the Phillies last year in Arlington, that opening series of 2014. Had no decision in a Ranger 4-3 win over the Phillies. 2-2 is coming. Hit well to right field. Going back, Barnes still going back, reaches up and hauls it in. Odor gets back to tag up. He will move to third. Boy, Barnes got a late break on that ball going back, and he had to use all of the outstretched arm and glove to make that grab. And another sharply hit ball by Beltre that found a glove.
It's a great at bat by Beltre again. He looks pretty locked in to me. I think he hit that ball about as hard as you can hit one. See Kendrick trying to go away with it. Beltre didn't try to pull it, went with it, crushed it to right, and Barnes was there for it.
So with 2 outs now, runners at the corners. Here's Josh Hamilton. Josh took an 0 for 5 last night. Off speed, and that cuts the strike zone in half. It is 0-1. Josh is 4 for 17 on this trip. Go back over the last 6 ball games. He's 4 for 22. trying to find his rhythm and timing at the plate. Fly ball right field. Barnes started back. Ball hanging up for him. He will make the catch, and that'll do it. Well, the Rangers started off promising. Leave a couple on a base hit and a walk. Half an inning in the books. No score in Denver. The Rockies come to bat in the bottom of the first, and here's Matt to tell you about their lineup.
All right, leading off for the Rockies will be Charlie Blackmon playing center field. DJ LeMahieu will be at second, batting second. Troy Tulowitzki will be playing shortstop, batting third. Nolan Arenado will clean up and play third base. Willen Rosario is the first baseman. He'll bat fifth. Drew Stubbs is in left, and he'll hit sixth. Nick Hundley will do the catching and bat seventh. Brandon Barnes will play right and bat eighth. And Kyle Kendrick, pitcher, will bat ninth.
Walt Weiss's club will be facing the 29-year-old left-hander from Stem, North Carolina. That's Matt Harrison. The first pitch by Matt to Charlie Blackmon is in for a strike. Matt looking for a little more consistency in his delivery. He said last time it kind of came and went with him. Trying to knock off some of the rust, and I mean competitive rust. Not being out there against major league hitters in a major league game, it tends to get you a little bit rusty. But get that taken care of, and also regain the command of that sinking fastball. Go ahead and let the thing go. See what you have to work with. Blackmon again fouling the pitch back. No balls and 2 strikes. And at first blush, 88 miles an hour on that last fastball. That is a couple of ticks up from where Matt was his first outing against Arizona.
Yeah, it just may take him some time to get that velocity back. The more he pitches, I think. Hopefully that will happen. You know, not sure he's going to be able to get to 93 to 95 the way he was before, but hey, as long as he's getting outs and being effective,
right,
that's what really counts.
1-2 pitch to Blackmon. Yeah, you know, and we talk about velocity and like it's the be-all, end-all. It's not, but a lot of times, especially when you're talking about a guy coming back from injury, lack of velocity also can mean lack of movement. You don't have the strength to finish off a pitch. Not only do you lose velocity, you lose the movement on the sinking fastball, the hard slider, the hard breaking ball. You just don't have the extension and the strength out there to finish those pitches off and impart that spin that creates the movement.
Yeah, and that's the thing that really gets hitters out. Number one, throwing off their timing, location, but then movement, especially late movement. If you've got late movement, there's not a whole lot a hitter can do.
Blackmon, a tapper by the mound. Tough play for a fielder to Harrison covering and not in time. Blackmon with a head-first dive. He had to wait a second for the first base umpire, Dan Bellino, to let us know what had happened. And it's going to go as an infield single, I would imagine, for Charlie Blackmon. Looks like he got a face full of Coors Field dirt.
That ball was just hit in no man's land. There's just not a whole lot you can do about this. You see Matt gets over, Prince comes in, gives him the flip. There's just not a whole lot that can be done there on that play there. Oh, that doesn't feel good on the hip.
I wouldn't think so.
That's just one of those plays that it's a hit. Second baseman, can't get over there to it. Matt's a left-handed pitcher, so he's falling toward third base. So for him to get back and get over there in time is just a difficult play to make.
So 1 on, nobody out. DJ LeMahieu now, the second baseman, takes strike 1.
See Prince coming in for it. It's in that area where he's in front of the bag. Whoever feels it's going to be in front of the bag, so trying to throw it back toward the bag is just an ill-advised play.
Chirinos shot down to first to see if he can get Blackman straying from the bag, and he couldn't. Pitch was a ball, so it's 1-1 now to LeMahieu. DJ LeMahieu hitting .312. 4 home runs, 36 driven in. Got Blackman at first. Blackman with 24 stolen bases this year. Harrison, a check of Blackman. 2-1. This was one of the strong suits of Matt Harrison pre all the injuries back in 2012. The double play ball. He had the ability to throw that sinker at 92, 93 miles an hour down and away to right-handers. And he would get more double plays. He had 31 his last full year with the Rangers before the injuries set in. Start throwing that heavy sinker like Matt had at that velocity, and you're going to get a lot of broken bat grounders to the shortstop or second baseman. You could use one of those right here. 2-1. There goes Blackman. The hit and run was on. The chopper is a fair ball that Beltre makes a nice play on to get LeMahieu. Adrian charging in and picking that off right on top of the line. Home plate umpire Tom Hallion making the call. And Adrian turned that into a fairly routine-looking play, but it was anything but. And we'll take a look at the Ranger defense delivered to you tonight by DeMontron RV. Outfield of Hamilton, DeShields, and Chu. Infield, and you've seen most of them already. Prince Fielder at first. Rugnet Odor, Elvis Andrews up the middle. Adrian Beltre at third. And Robinson Chirinos is catching for Matt Harrison. So 1 out. Blackman at second base. Here's Troy Tulowitzki. Tulowitzki, a .320 average. That is 5th in the National League. 12 home runs, 52 runs driven in. And he has reached base an astounding 41 consecutive ball games. 1-0 pitch.
See a play by Beltre on LeMahieu. He comes in and gets this ball. Fortunately, didn't hit the lip of the grass, but Beltre makes an easy play out of that one.
Well, on the play, Blackman was moving with a pitch, so he was able to get into second easily. 1-1 now to the count to Tulowitzki. And he takes strike 2. Tulowitzki with runners in scoring position, the 4th best average in the National League at .403. And against Matt Harrison, Tulowitzki just 0 for 1. That ball is just foul down the left side into the third deck. We have seen some foul ball now. Prince Fielder hit one the other way to right field that he pulled into the third deck. Tulowitzki, and neither one of those pitches were fair when they hit him at any time.
I don't understand how guys do that. Really.
Either. 2-2. I remember watching Ian Kinsler all those times at Globe Life Park. He would hit some, I would swear, went right by his left shoulder. How do you get the bat head to position to hit the ball like that? He could. Popped up. Way up there. Beltre coming down the line into foul territory. And Adrian with the basket catch for out number 2.
He's amazing. That's just not an easy play to make. He's coming in on the run. That ball is actually coming back toward home plate. And this is really an easier way to catch it than to have your glove flipped up backwards. But not many guys can do the basket catch like that. I mean, he's on the run doing that.
No, a critical second out for Matt Harrison. Now you'll have to deal with Nolan Arenado. Arenado, the home run and RBI leader on the Colorado Rockies. 24 home runs, 72 driven in. He's hitting at .287. Drove in 2 last night to tie for the league lead with those 72 driven in. Got Charlie Blackmon out at second. 1-0 pitch coming. A little changeup. 1-1. That's a pitch that Matt Harrison said he's going to need to learn how to rely on a little more. It was a pitch that every once in a while he'd break out for a ball game, but never really stuck with it too much. And he said that's probably going to have to become a pretty big part of my repertoire every game. 2 balls and a strike. Matt, the first start against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ended up going 4 innings in that ball game. Throw down a second. That almost hit Matt Harrison. Torinos came up throwing. Matt got down on one knee, and he probably heard that thing whiz by his back of his head.
Wow.
Matt was getting out of the line of fire as best he could. 3-1 the count to Arenado. That's in the dirt for ball 4. Well, with first base open after Matt fell behind Arenado and decided, no, it's probably not a great idea. And he's got some numbers to back up his ability. Oh, a 2-out walk. Runners at first and second now. And Willen Rosario will step to the plate. Rosario, a former catcher. He's almost exclusively now anything but playing first base. The Rockies have had a need for a first baseman after Justin Morneau went out with the concussion symptoms. Oh, 0-1 the count. Good changeup. Rosario out in front of it, and it's a ball and 2 strikes.
You know, that could be a very effective pitch for Matt. See that changeup down and away, ran a little bit off the plate.
About a 13 or 14 mile an hour difference between that and his fastball. Ahead of the count, 0-2. Pitch is popped foul. That will reach the seats on the first base side. Well, Blackmon back to second. Arenado back to first. Willen Rosario at the plate. Saw the numbers on him. 5 home runs, 22 driven in, hitting at .285. Last 10 ball games have not been kind to Rosario. Just a .167 average. He's got some pop, though. He can drive the ball to all parts of the park. That just missed the outside corner. Like a little backdoor breaking ball that short slider. just stayed outside. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Matt now in this inning, as you can see, 27 pitches. He's been forced to work overtime a bit. Kind of the situation he got into in the second inning of the first outing that he had. 2-2. Elvis in time to get Rosario, and that will do it. The Rockies get a base hit and a walk, but they strand 2. We played an inning here at Coors Field in Denver, no score.
Reaches of each of the ballparks, and I found another one. Now, until last year, these were seats up here at Coors Field, but now this is the rooftop area. It's full of bridges and bars. I've seen lots of Rangers fans up here because they like beer as well as the next guy. Great world-class views from up here, too, guys. I see the whole city of Denver over here, and, of course, the game down there. And you guys know this. I attempted to climb a mountain today, so it's a miracle that I made it up here. Did I make it up the mountain? We'll find out later on in the game, guys.
How are those knees, Red?
Oh, they're barking.
Better you than me.
Elvis Andrus to start things off here for the Rangers in the top of the second inning. Kyle Kendrick to work and deals strike 1. Elvis, 243 with the average. 3 home runs, 30 RBI. One ball and 1 strike. Elvis on this trip 4 for 15 thus far. Go back over the last week, 7 ball games. He's gone 8 for 24. Elvis showing signs of turning things around, but it's been kind of a streaky year for him. And he's not alone in that category. It's been, for a lot of guys on the ball club, it's been streaky. Remember April, almost everybody except Prince Fielder was scuffling. And you got into May, then everybody got hot, it seemed like. And June, things cooled off a little bit. 2-1 to Elvis. Here's a base hit to center field. Well, the Rangers again with the leadoff man aboard. It was DeShields double in the first, and now Elvis with a single starting off the second. Next to be Shin-Soo Choo.
Elvis getting the fastball right down the middle of the plate. Gets the head on it, drives it right back up the middle.
We'll see if Elvis tries to break out the running game. Rangers haven't really been running much. They used to have 4 stolen bases in the last 16 games. They're still among the league leaders. They're 5th in the American League with 57 stolen bases. It's become kind of a forgotten part of the Ranger offense. Chu, a base hit to right center. And that's going to scoot up the alley. Elvis at third. He's going to be waved around. Here comes the throw to the plate. It is not in time. Elvis scoring all the way from first on a Shin-Soo Choo double, and the Rangers lead it 1-0. There's that ball scooting through an alley, Mac, that you were talking about last night.
Yeah, it's very tough up here. You know, the infield's fast, the outfield is fast. Chu crushed that ball through the infield, and it almost got through all the way to the wall, but it drove the outfielders deep into the gap, deep enough to get Elvis to enable Elvis to score all the way from first base. You see that ball swoop through there, 1-2 hopper through, and they are deep, about 10 feet from the warning track. And Tony Beasley being aggressive with the runners on base, knowing that Elvis can run. He sees the play develop, and then he starts winding, and Elvis makes it easily.
Oh, single, double, and the Rangers are on the board first here tonight as Robinson Chirinos takes strike 1.
Chu jumped on the first pitch he saw. He's been very aggressive in the 2 games that he started. It's 3 for his last 4.
Yeah. Good to see him being productive that way. I know he was not only concerned about it, he was working as hard as he could at it when he wasn't in the ball games. It's starting to pay dividends for him.
Yeah, he'd be a big part to this ball club. I mean, he's a great hitter, great player. And I know he's definitely trying to turn things around, and it will go a long way for this ball club if he can do it.
Chu now at second base. Robinson Chirinos, a .214 hitter. Awaits the 0-1 pitch from Kendrick. It's out of play to the right, and the count evens at a ball and a strike. Robinson's been swinging the bat well of late. He's 2 out of 8 on this trip, but over the longer haul, he is 6 for his last 16 times to the plate. That's that .375 average you're looking at. One and 2 now for Chirinos. This is his 62nd start behind the plate for the Rangers this year. Trying to pick up Chu from second. Nobody out here in the second inning. 2 and 2. Told you, Kyle Kendrick have problems in this ballpark. The home runs, obviously, a bit of a problem, but also walks. He's had 16 walks in the 42 innings coming in at home this year. That's a big contributor to that ERA that's a little bit better than 6.5. Robinson able to get a piece of that off-speed pitch. Stays alive at 2 and 2. Kendrick signed as a free agent with the Colorado Rockies this past February. Rockies in his 18 previous starts, just 5 and 13. Three and 2 now. Chirinos able to work back from being down on the count 0-2 to fill the count. Chirinos hitting 8th. He'll be followed by the pitcher, Matt Harrison. Kendrick okays the sign. A check of Chu. He misses high and tight. A single, double walk. A run in, 2 aboard. And now Matt Harrison, pretty basic, straightforward job to sacrifice. A reminder that fans attending the game on Friday, August 14th with the Tampa Bay Rays will enjoy a special post-game fireworks show set to Star Wars music. There will also be special appearances by the Star Wars characters out on the concourse. Visit TexasRangers.com/specials and use the coupon code FIREWORKS to get $14 upper reserve tickets. Just so there wouldn't be any miscommunication, Tony Beasley came down and said to Matt Harrison, bunt.
Don't want to get this mixed up with anything.
Yep.
Don't swing the bat. Bunt it if you can.
And it's down.
Perfect.
It's a good one if it stays. Oh. Just dribbling off the grass. Once it hit the dirt, it had that spin on it to take it into foul territory.
Wow, that would have been a nice hit for Matt.
Well, Matt will come back and try it one more time.
Looked pretty comfortable in there.
Yeah, he did.
Getting that thing down, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like he's done it before.
He has. Matt swung the bat before and sacrificed before. He's also 0 for 16 in his major league career. Just couldn't get that to hug the chalk. No, 0-1. Again, Rosario coming down the line from first. And Matt gets this one down. This time, he makes the third baseman Arenado field it. And Matt Harrison gets the job done. The sacrifice goes 5-4. Nice job, Matt.
Beautiful job.
Help yourself out.
There
Help
you go.
the ball club out.
That's a pretty good bunt. I'm trying to remember if anybody else on the team has bunted that well. Perfect. 5 feet off the line. Third baseman, make the third baseman come and get it. Look at that.
Getting high fives. He's also getting Elvis out there to say, okay, where do I sign up for bunting instruction? So he lined up for that. Nice job, Matt Harrison. Now the infield pulled all the way in with one out. Runners at second and third. Delino to Shields. Had the check swing double to start things off for the Rangers. And he takes strike one.
Look at this form. Gets his knees down, bends with his knees. Gets the head to the ball. Guides it right where he wants to put it.
Nicely done. Kendrick working from the stretch. And a high chopper over Arenado into left field. Chu will score. Coming around third and in to score, Robinson Chirinos. A 2-run single for Delino to Shields, and the Rangers lead it 3-0. Be back in Arizona?
It looks like it's spring training. It's the second ball we've seen jump over an infielder's head like that. Shields gets the job done. Chirinos made a great read on that ball. See, Shields gets a little fastball down and in. Hits the dirt part of it. And watch Chirinos. He reads it. He sees that Arenado's not going to be able to get it, and that's what enables him to take off and score easily on this play. A lot of times you'll see a guy not sure if that third baseman gets it, because if he does, he's right there in the line in between the runner and third base, and you're an easy out. So Chirinos saw that Arenado wasn't going to be able to get it, took off.
Well, Delino had a little larceny in his heart that time, but Kyle Kendrick said, not on this pitch. He almost got Delino leaning a little too far towards second.
I like it. This is the interesting part of the game.
Yeah.
Cat and mouse.
Rougned Odor waiting. And again, the Shields drawing a throw from Kendrick. Delino, fourth in the American League with 15 stolen bases this year. You got to remember now, he missed a month of games and didn't really get in the lineup for the first month. So he's only had about 2 full months of playing.
That's pretty impressive. You know, we talked about the running game earlier. The more they get on base, the more they're obviously going to be able to run. But with them being a little bit streaky, a lot of the guys have been, you know, hot and cold. And typically when you're all cold at the same time, that makes it that much more difficult to get anything going. And then when everybody's hot, you kind of don't want to have that running game going, because you guys, especially with this lineup, you've got guys that are hitting the ball in the gap, hitting the ball out of the park, and you don't want to take the bat out of their hands.
And again, DeShields having to go back to the outfield side of that bag with a hand. And avoid the tag by Rosario. Tony Beasley going through the signs.
Shields getting back. Now this is where a good number 2 hitter comes in handy. This is a big part of being a number 2 hitter. You see that your base stealer ahead of you, the pitcher tries to pick him off 3 times in a row. As that number 2 hitter, you kind of want to take a little bit of extra time getting back in that batter's box to give your base stealer an opportunity to catch his breath and give him an opportunity to steal a base. So there's some little nuances that go on for every part of that lineup, especially in that 2 slot.
And what about where Delino is over there in this ballpark, Mac, about looking directly into the sun? It looks like there's a shadow over his eyes, but that's a pretty tough part of the ballpark.
It's a very tough part of the ballpark. It's tougher for the first baseman than Delino, because what he's really watching, he's watching Kyle Hendricks' feet. So Delino already wears his helmet down, and I'm sure he's probably got it down a little bit. You see that right there over his eyes. So when he gets out there to get his maximum lead, he tilts his head down just a little bit, and all he's seeing are Hendricks' feet. That's all he needs to see, because if he's going to come over to first base, he's got to pick up that right heel first. That's the first thing. And if something else moves, then you know he's going to the plate.
Rugnet turning on that pitch and pulls it well foul. 2 balls, 2 strikes. That's assuming you don't get a pitcher that keep that right heel down and spin and throw to first.
Balk.
Never called.
I'd call it. The umpire may not agree, but I'm going to call it. Knowing he's got to be dead to rights. Balk, timeout, something.
There goes the Shields. Pitch is inside. The throw to second is not in time. Got the hand in under the tag by Tulowitzki. Leonard Shields with his 16th stolen base of the year.
Great jump by DeShields. So he gets a great jump. Hundley comes up fired.
And they're going to take a look at that. Now the challenge has been issued. It's hard to tell on that particular replay where his hand was. The tag got him. It got down on that arm. But the question they're going to have to answer was the hand in contact with the bag when that happened.
Man, I'm sure glad they didn't have instant replay when I did.
Now Tom Hallion, the crew chief, and home plate umpire, and Chris Siegel, the second base umpire who made the call. Now the headsets on. They are in contact with the replay command center back in New York. Here's a better shot at it.
Looks like he kind of got him up high.
If it got him on the left arm first and when he was swiping it by, he's probably out. And they are calling him out. Well, the call is overturned, and replay satisfying the official in charge of replays for this ball game back in New York that there's clear and convincing evidence that the call was not correct. So it is overturned. It's a caught stealing from the Rugnet Odor. And that is out number 2, and now the bases are empty. Excuse me, for DeShields. Odor waiting the pitch. He hammers it to right field. Barnes, it's over his head before he can even turn around. Odor zipping into second base with a double. Boy, that was some kind of rocket. Got over Barnes' head before he even had a chance to move back on it.
Barnes wasn't, he got fooled. He didn't pick it up off the bat or something, but he may not have thought that ball was hit as hard as it was. But Ruby jumped all over that. Kendrick trying to go away. Ball comes back out over the middle plate, a little inside. And Ruby hammers it. You see Barnes not sure which way to go. Probably just not sure how hard that ball was hit.
I was going to ask you, because when Adrian Beltre hit a line drive to right field, it was over Barnes' head. Looked like he had trouble picking the ball up. That pitch gets away from Hundley, so Odor down to third. He takes a big turn there, and he'll hang on. A wild pitch. Odor now at third with 2 outs for Prince Fielder. Is it difficult to change from left field one night to right field the next night?
You know, for some guys it is, and I never really understood that. You know, the ball obviously goes the other way, and with Beltre, the ball's going to, a right-handed hitter like Beltre, the ball's going to tail towards the line. So he was able to pick that up, and it was probably because he could see the ball actually hit the bat. But with a left-hander, you can get shaded out, especially on an inside pitch. Now, with a left-hander pulling that ball to right field, it's probably going to hook toward the line as well. So some guys do have some difficulty going from left field to right field, and I never really understood that. You'll also have, you know, center fielders that have difficulty playing the corner spots, and guys that play the corner have difficulty playing center field. So it just depends on the player. Yeah. There's some guys that have no problem playing all three of those positions, but yes, I've seen guys have trouble in a different spot, especially the corner spots.
2-0 the count to Fielder. Just airing it out, and that looked like a splitter. 2-1. Brents drew a walk his first time up. Got Rougned Odor at third. Rangers have plated 3 runs in this inning. Odor with a big 2-out double, advancing to third on the wild pitch. Two and two. Kendrick now up to 45 pitches for the game. He has had to work double overtime in this frame. Last 27 road games, Prince Fielder has hit almost 370. 368. And we remind you, even with the overshift, that Prince still with the best batting average with runners in scoring position in baseball. Or excuse me, in the American League. You have Tulowitzki and LeMahieu and Rosario over on the right side, and Arenado the only one on the left side. 3-2.
You know, and I know everybody says they look at the alignment here. You got 3 guys on the right side of the infield, and you see the third baseman over there on the shortstop side. Everybody says, well, why can't he just hit it up the middle? Believe me, if it were that easy, everybody could do it. You know, the pitcher's not trying to throw him something, you know, in that spot to where he can do it with.
Now the payoff pitch. Got him swinging. Pulled the string and had Prince out in front, and that'll do it. But Rangers score 3 times on 4 hits. They lead 1 after 1.5. Rangers 3, Rockies nothing. Strong fan, and you just might see yourself on one of our upcoming broadcasts. This is all brought to you by the good folks at T-Mobile. Well, Matt Harrison now with a 3-0 advantage with which to work. He goes to work here in the second inning. Drew Stubbs leading things off for the Rockies. Former Longhorn outstanding player down in Austin. And Stubbs got off to a terrible start this year. And Rockies sent him down to AAA. He had the option, if he had chosen to, because of his tenure in the big leagues, to turn down that chance. But he decided to go down and work on things and get himself back together. He just had a devil of a time making contact. He's worked things out a little bit. Still, the average not where he'd like it at 159, but getting a little more playing time since he came back from AAA. 2-2 the count. Stubbs one of those guys that you look at and say, boy, how can this guy miss? He's a proverbial five-tool player, if you will. And the only problem that he's had, he runs well, he's a good outfielder, he throws well, just making contact. He strikes out an awful lot.
It happens to a lot of guys,
yeah.
Unfortunately. But, you look at a guy like that, looks like a ball player, but they just have trouble for whatever reason making that kind of consistent contact that they need to make to stay in the big leagues.
He's worked the count full now, leading off this second inning. Stubbs with 5 home runs, 9 driven in limited play. Payoff pitch from Harrison. Beltre has to wait for the bigger hop. Quick throw, and he gets Stubbs by a half step. 1 gone. Nick Hundley now will come up.
See, Beltre, he knows what he has to do. He has to play this ball back. He knows the speed that Stubbs has, so he gets it, unloads it. A strike right over there, Prince.
$2,414 games now.
Wow.
Adrian Beltre at third base. Second only to Brooks Robinson in baseball history. If you're anywhere mentioned in the same breath with Brooks Robinson, you've done something pretty special.
You definitely have. Brooks was a great player. Got a chance to spend some time with him my years in Baltimore. And just the knowledge that he has about playing the game.
Chopper foul by Hundley. It's 0-2.
Anytime you're talking about being on an all-time list of any kind,
yeah, that's right.
You've done something.
Yeah, checkers is fine. It doesn't matter. Adrian, and somebody told him last year. Brooks had told one of the guys that travels with us to make sure and tell Adrian that how much he enjoyed watching him play. And Beltre, you would have thought it was the president talking to him. He was just, aw shucks, and it really flabbergasted him. Adrian just doesn't think of himself in terms of like that.
No, he's one of the most humble players I've ever met. And, you look at what he's done, his body of work over the years, and there's still a lot to be added to that. But when you talk about playing third base, Adrian Beltre is in that conversation.
Yep.
There's just no doubt about it.
2-2 the count to Nick Hundley. Hundley a .299 average. 6 home runs, 30 driven in for the catcher. Matt Harrison getting ready to throw his 40th pitch of the night. Line to right. That's going to sink in front of Shin-Soo Choo for a base hit. Nick Hundley, a 1-out single. And now Brandon Barnes will come up.
Matt trying to go down and away. Got it up just a little bit higher than what he wanted to. Hundley takes it to the right.
Second Rockies hit. Charlie Blackmon had a leadoff infield single in the first inning. Brandon Barnes a .294 average with a home run and 10 RBI. Off speed, and that is over for strike one. Barnes last night 1 for 3. Had a walk in that ballgame. He brings in a 6-game hitting streak. And he skies one to right center field. Choo and DeShields. It'll be Delino DeShields to make the call and the catch for out number 2. It's only the second out in the air against Matt Harrison tonight. So that sinker ball is coming back for him. Getting lot of ground outs and just the one foul pop up by Tulowitzki, and now the fly ball by Barnes. Everything else has been it's been on the ground. Kyle Kendrick, Matt Harrison's opposite number, a 152 hitter. Takes strike one. Kendrick 5 for 32 this year. A ball and a strike. Harrison a check of first. Comes back with strike two.
I wonder how difficult it could be for a pitcher to face another pitcher in the lineup. What's going through his mind? Do I not want to let this guy on? I can't walk him. I can't let him get a hit.
Yeah. That's like we were talking about last night. As soon as you get in the mode of telling yourself what you don't want to do, you're dead.
Done. Stick a fork in you.
That's exactly right. You got to be positive with yourself. Say, this is what we're going to do, and let's go do it. 2-2 pitch. And Matt misses way upstairs. No, 3-2 count. Well, Matt has reached 91 miles an hour tonight with a fastball, and the off-speed stuff is as low as 74. 3-2 pitch. And that's spoiled. Slapped out of play by Kendrick. So Hundley back to first. We will try it again. Matt sets. Hundley on the move. Fly ball right field. Playing very shallow. Shih Tzu Chu. Hardly had to move, and that'll do it. No runs, a hit, one left. Matt Harrison threw 2 innings. The Rangers have given him a 3-0 lead with which to work. Circle August the 5th. That's a Wednesday. That's the next Dollar Hot Dog Night. Rangers taking on the Houston Astros at Globe Life Park. Visit TexasRangers.com for tickets, or if you prefer, you can call 972-RANGERS. Ranger apparel all over Coors Field. It's been all over the base paths also. Now Kendrick gave up 3 runs to the Rangers in the second inning. Rangers will come to bat now in the top of the third inning. It'll be Beltre, Hamilton, and Andrews to face Kyle Hendrick. has had to go to the well as far as pitches are concerned. A lot. The Rangers made him throw upwards of 30 pitches in that second inning. And in this altitude, it makes a difference. He's at 47 altogether now. But you start packing a lot of pitches in one inning, and you may not recover. Beltre lined sharply to right field his first time up. He takes the breaking ball for strike one. Adrian 0 for 1. Batting average down an even 260. Lashed to left field. He's going to be 0 for 2 and hitting the ball right on the nose both times. Stubbs handles it. One away. Josh Hamilton coming up. But first, we're going to send it back to Dana Larson for a Mazda game break. All right, Dana, thank you. Josh Hamilton in a little jam shot fly ball to right field his first time up there.
Yeah, we talked about it the other day, Buzz, about Josh kind of being in the middle or in between the fastball and the changeup.
That's off the end of the bat. LeMahieu gets Hamilton by a step and a half. Great shot of the rays of the sun cascading down through the low clouds onto the Rockies. Boy, some great vistas here.
That's
from the ballpark.
Beautiful shot. Wow.
Had some pretty good rain here this afternoon. It cleared out very nicely, and we see over the mountains and up north of us some pretty menacing looking clouds, but not coming this way. 2 up, 2 away here in the third. Elvis Andrus got that second inning started with a solid base hit to center. Elvis now back up to 246 as Kendrick comes to the plate. 0-2. Elvis creeping back up toward his season high on the average. It was 251 before he started this latest little mini slide. He's gotten that reversed, and see if he can't get up over that 250 mark and stay up there.
Yeah, and I like how he's, the way that he's going about doing it. Of course, everybody wants to go 10 for 15 or 15 for 25, but I like the gradual climb, because what that says is you're being consistent over an extended period of time, not 3 or 4 or 5 games and you're hot, and then the next thing you know you're 0 for 12 or 0 for 13.
Line drive to Lewitzki, taking it away from Elvis. Side retired in order. First time that's been done by either pitcher tonight. 3 up, 3 down after 2.5. 3-0 Rangers. Fox Sports Southwest is brought to you by your Texas Ford dealers. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer to kick off the summer right. Ford is the best in Texas. The cloud cover over the Rocky Mountains off to our west. 3-0 Rangers on top. Rockies come to bat here in the bottom of the third inning. Top of the order. Charlie Blackmon leading off and takes strike one. Blackmon had the infield single his first time up. Walt Weiss's team. You know, you get in this ballpark, we mentioned this just briefly last night, but this is a launching pad. And by that, I mean, look at the numbers for the Rockies hitters here at home. Rosario 348, LeMahieu 347, right on down. Arenado, one of their better hitters, is 302. A flip over to Matt Harrison covering, and Blackmon retired this time for out number one.
You know, all of those guys are in the lineup tonight. So, you know, three runs, and we saw it last night. A 7-run deficit was wiped away. It took the Rangers a while to get there, 9 innings, but they got there. So, you know, relying on just 3 runs is not what you want to do. You definitely want to continue to add as many as you possibly can, because it's never over. That old saying, it's never over until the larger lady sings. That definitely holds true here in Colorado.
That's a politically correct way to approach that.
Thank you.
The larger lady. Okay.
Have to change it up a little bit.
Yeah. DJ LeMahieu, ground ball to third base, his first time up. But you kind of point out what you're talking about, Mac. The Rockies in their last 11 games at home have gone 8-3, and they've hit a cumulative 335. Beltre, a nice pickup on the backhand, and throws out LeMahieu. They've hit 335 in those 11 games with 16 home runs. So it can get ignited in a hurry.
Yeah, they can turn it around quickly. The Rockies have always had teams that can score a bunch of runs, and this year's no exception. Even though they're in last in the National League West, they can score runs and score them in bunches.
Well, Matt Harrison doing a pretty good job of shutting him down so far. He's allowed just 2 hits through the first 2 2/3 innings. Now he'll face Troy Tulowitzki. Tulowitzki fouled out to Adrian Beltre in the first inning. I think it's pretty safe to say he is the face of the Rockies franchise. And I guess every year about this time, when you approach the trade deadline, there's questions about, well, are you going to trade Tulowitzki this year and stock up your farm system or what have you? And you'd have to get a whole truckload of prospects and guys ready to compete at the major league level to let go of Tulowitzki.
Yeah, I know I would. I'd want some guys that are close to major league ready, and when I say close, maybe at the end of this year, but definitely for next year. But this is a franchise type player.
41 consecutive games, trying to extend that to 42. 365 average, hitting safely in 38 of those 41 games. And this was pop foul back into the seats. And Matt Harrison now with an 0-2 count. And Matt's had Tulowitzki off balance in the first 2 at bats.
He has. He jammed him the first time up to get him to pop one up. A couple of pitches down on the way that he kind of flailed at. Tulo not really knowing what Matt's trying to do to him.
Harrison to the wind, the 0-2 pitch. Got him swinging. Went upstairs, and Tulowitzki upset with himself. He tried to climb that ladder, didn't have enough rungs on it. 3 up, 3 down for Matt Harrison. After 3, Rangers by 3. Fans, we'd like to remind you that tickets for most Tuesday home games in the upper reserve, upper box, Lexus Club Terrace, and lower reserve sections are half price when purchased online thanks to Ozarka. Tuesday, August 4th, the perfect time to take advantage of this offer. The Rangers play the Houston Astros at Globe Life. Get your tickets online at texasrangers.com/specials using the online coupon code Ozarka. Shin-Soo Choo stepping in to start the Ranger fourth inning against Kyle Kendrick. Choo had the RBI double that got the Rangers on the board for the first time in the second inning. Choo driving in his 40th run of the year. And he takes a little bit low. It's 2 balls, no strikes. Choo has had some pretty good success against Kyle Kendrick. Had a couple of home runs against him. They came on successive at-bats against the right-hander. That's in for a strike. Choo now with that double is 4 for 12 against him with 5 runs driven in. The 2-1 pitch. That ball is blasted to right field. There it goes. Goodbye. Make that 3 home runs in his career against Kyle Kendrick. Shin-Soo Choo with his 12th home run of the year. The Rangers lead it 4-0.
Choo got a pitch that he liked and that he could handle. And he's looked like a different hitter since coming back from the All-Star break. Bat whipping through the zone. First time up, drilled a single or double to right center field. Kendrick trying to go inside on him here, and that's that happy spot. Got the head to it. There's no doubt about that one.
Well, the Rangers' 98th home run of the year as a team. And that was liftoff by Shin-Soo Choo. Now Robinson Chirinos, who walked and scored in the second inning. 1 ball and 1 strike to him. Now the most home runs in the National League. We told you Kendrick came in with 23. He's now up that to 24. And, he's not through yet. Maybe. Choo now 4 for 5 on this road trip. Chirinos at 214 as he steps in. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Towering fly ball in foul territory. That's going to be back into the seats well out of play.
What do you think if I said he hit that ball a mile high? Would that be technically correct?
Yeah, it would have been. You have to.
Purple seats?
The purple line up there, yeah, purple line of seats.
Maybe not. Close.
There's the 5280 club. John was up there, wasn't he, in those seats last night, showing us where that is exactly a mile high. It's nice to see that the architects laid it out well for the engineers too that built the place, that it's level. That's the same row all the way around. It'd be embarrassing to have to go up and down rows as you were staying at a mile high. Chirinos tapping it foul, staying alive at 1 ball and 2 strikes. This is a beautiful ballpark.
It really is. The backdrop is tremendous.
Yeah, you know, this in the ilk of parks of this ilk started in the early 90s with Camden Yards in Baltimore and Globe Life Park. All the parks that came along about that time really used the surroundings well, aesthetically pleasing. Chirinos grounds out. That's 1 away, and Matt Harrison will be next.
You know, I like the fact that a lot of the new stadiums started going downtown.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of downtowns were pretty much run down and eyesores, and to get the stadium down there and what beautification process, rejuvenation. The downtowns have really been revitalized by that. Baltimore is a great example, that Inner Harbor area.
Great example there.
Detroit, yeah. And Matt takes strike two. Or strike one, I'm sorry. 1 ball and 1 strike. I think Matt might be under orders. Keep that bat on your shoulder. If the bat gets off your shoulder, you get fined. Might be. I don't know that for sure.
That would be a safe bet and probably a good thing.
Yeah. Coming back off 3 back surgeries, I don't think you want to take a chance on throwing that thing out again by swinging. 2-2. And if you're Kyle Kendrick, you can see what he's doing, and you're still having trouble throwing strikes consistently. That's not good.
That can't feel good. That cannot feel good as a pitcher.
No, it can't. You're right. Can't feel good if you're the pitcher's manager either. Walt Weiss has kind of got a look on his face like, what is going on here? 3-2 pitch. Got him looking. It took him 6 pitches, but Kendrick got the non-swinging Matt Harrison. Second strikeout for Kendrick. 2 gone, and Delino DeShields now will come up.
Yeah, Tom Hallion kind of got into this one a little bit. He was really into that one.
He hadn't been able to call anybody out for a while. He had to get loose again, I guess. Well, Delino DeShields has gotten loose tonight. A single, a double, 2 RBI. And he's going to have a 3rd hit. Over to cut it off is Stubbs. Going for 2. No, he put the brakes on. Well, Delino thought about it. And with 2 outs, he might have had even more of a passing thought. But he slammed the brakes on and holds on with his 2nd double in 3 hits.
Delino swinging the bat well, being very aggressive. Rough night last night at the plate. But comes back today, gets fastball up and in. Drills at the left. I think he was a little upset.
Yeah,
I think he probably wanted to go there.
I think he did too. 7 hits now for the Rangers to go along with their 4 runs. Rougned Odor, 1 for 2. Left center field, that's hit pretty well. Stubbs on his horse back in the alley, and that ball is 1 hop and out of the ballpark. And that's going to cost the Rangers a run and cost Rougned Odor an RBI. Delino DeShields is going to have to go back to 3rd base. Odor with his 2nd double of the night. And this thing was blasted the deepest part of the ballpark, way back there in the alley. His 10th double of the year. That ball stays in the ballpark. It's probably a triple. And DeShields is in the dugout clapping for Odor when he gets to 3rd.
Odor jumped all over this pitch from Kendrick. And both outfielders knew they had no chance to get it. They were just waiting for it to come off the wall somehow. But it bounced into the stands. It saved the Rockies a run.
Steve Foster, the pitching coach, out there to add some encouragement. Kyle Kendrick has given up 4 doubles today to the Rangers. Odor's had 2. Delino DeShields has had 1. Chu's had 1. Chu's had a home run. Well, here's Prince Fielder, runners at 2nd and 3rd. An opportunity to really open up things for the Rangers.
See if we can see where the Shields was when that ball bounced out of here. Almost at third base. There'll be no chance to get him.
No, if that ball stays in the ballpark, he could have run around to second base again. One ball, no strikes. High in the air to right field, but didn't quite get all of it. And Barnes will make the catch. That will do it. But the Rangers add another run. The leadoff home run by Shin-Soo Choo. Rangers get 2 more hits and strand a couple. After 3.5, Rangers 4, Rockies nothing. Is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Book your low fare now at southwest.com. And by Mazda. In every car we make, you'll see why driving matters. Well, Matt Harrison back to the hill. Now a 4-0 lead to protect. Arenado drives one to right center. That is one hop and off the wall. Chu playing the carom, and Nolan Arenado in with a leadoff 2-bagger against Matt Harrison. It is just the 3rd hit the Rockies have had against the Ranger left-hander.
Arenado looking for a pitch. Matt trying to go down and away with it. A little bit too high and over the plate. Arenado gets it and drills it in the right center field.
Yeah, I think you're right too, Mac. It looked like Arenado was just giving up the inside part of the plate. That first pitch, he was taking everything to right field.
Yeah, and good hitters will start to eliminate pitches once they see how a pitcher's pitching, either themselves or a hitter in the lineup like them.
But then Rosario rounds out on one pitch to Elvis Andrus, and Arenado has to stay at second base. So Rosario didn't have a very productive at bat. One away, Drew Stubbs now will come up.
Yeah, they'll start to eliminate pitches. If a pitcher is trying to throw them inside just to get them off the plate, and then they're going away with a changeup or something, or a backdoor breaking ball, they'll say, okay, I'm just going to give up this part of the plate, and I'm going to look away. No matter if it's a fastball or something off speed, I'm going to look for a zone, an area of the plate that I can drive something in. Those good hitters, they'll do it, and they'll stick with it that entire at bat.
Sharply hit under the glove of Andrus into left center field. Arenado had to go back to the bag, thinking that Elvis might come up with it, so he only advances to third. Stubbs with a base hit, and the Rockies now runners at first and third with just one out for Nick Hundley.
Stubbs crushes this ball to Elvis's left. Elvis thought he had a play on it. Gets under his glove.
A couple of hits in the inning and 4 hits for the evening. Nick Hundley has one of those 4 hits. He singled to right field his first time up. Arenado, the runner at third base. Drew Stubbs over at first. Hundley with that base hit, now back up over 300. 302 as he faces Matt Harrison. Middle of the Ranger infield looking for that double play ground ball. High chopper. Elvis to the bag. Back to first, double play. Well, not traditional, but that'll get the job done. 6-3 on the Twin killing. The Rockies are gone. No runs, 2 hits. And 1 left. After 4, the Rangers lead by 4.
Taking a nice break from the heat and getting a little fun in the Rocky Mountain area. Photographer Chris Fitzpatrick and I did the same today. We decided to head on out to the mountains. There's so many mountains around here. Why not climb one, right? I mean, what else are they there for? So this is the one we were going to climb. It's a 3.2-mile hike up to the Royal Arch. Somewhere up near the peak of that mountain is the Royal Arch. Now, the trail is not always clear. So look at this. I mean, I'm trying to navigate these rocks and find my way. You can see the utter confusion. We got lost twice, but luckily there are signs, and they point the way toward Royal Arch. So we finally find the way to Royal Arch, but could I make it all the way to the top? Look at there! The cynic among you might say, wait a minute, that might not be Radigan. That could be a silhouette of anybody. Listen, if you don't believe me, I'll put the microphone down by my knees and you'll hear him barking, guys.
Adrian Beltre not barking after that one. He grounds out fairly weakly to Troy Tulowitzki. First time that Adrian hasn't hit the ball right on the nose tonight. Ground out to start the Ranger 5th. Josh Hamilton to be next. No, John Radigan had a witness. And Chris Fitzpatrick had no witness with him. Fitz would never lie about that. He would. He's as honest as the day is long. He says John made it. He made it. Ground ball up the middle. LeMahieu throw is off base, and Hamilton aboard with an infield single. LeMahieu shading Hamilton into the hole and had a long way to go. That ball not hit very sharply either. So Josh aboard with his first hit of the night.
Perfect placement. Hits this ball back up the middle. LeMahieu was over in the hole toward first base. Got to it pretty good. Just not enough time.
Well, the Rangers now with 9 hits off of Kendrick tonight. 1 on, 1 out here in the 5th. Elvis Andrus 1 for 2. Had a single and scored a run in the 2nd inning. First pitch from Kendrick. 1 ball, no strikes. Rangers 4 runs on 9 hits, no errors. The Rockies no runs on 4 hits and no errors. Matt Harrison holding the Rockies at bay, which is no mean feat in this ballpark. Elvis slicing one toward the corner down the right field line. He is going to put the brakes on as Barnes gets to the ball in a hurry. On around to third goes Hamilton. Second hit of the night for Elvis. Rangers have runners at the corners with 1 out for Shin-Soo Choo.
Barnes made a really good play cutting that ball off. Sliced down the right field line by Elvis. He's shading Elvis to right field anyway. But Elvis had a little bit of slice on that ball, so it could have very easily have gone into the corner, and that would have allowed Josh to score all the way from first base. So Barnes made a nice play getting to that ball and cutting it off.
And Walt Weiss headed out to the mound after that base hit by Andrews. That's 10 base hits now for the Rangers tonight, and 4 in the 3rd innings against Kyle Kendrick, and that will be the last they see of him as Walt Weiss signals to the bullpen that he wants the left-hander to come on. So a pitching change underway here. Rangers leading 4-0. They are looking for more in the 5th inning. 2 on and 1 out. A pitching change underway, a timeout, and we're back right after this. CONCACAF Gold Cup, sponsored by Chevrolet, begin as Clint Dempsey and Team USA continue their quest for a 2nd consecutive Gold Cup title. They take on Jamaica. Coverage begins at 4:30 on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Now the left-hander Johan Flande is on the mound now, taking over for Kyle Kendrick. Kendrick went 4 1/3, 10 hits, 4 runs so far, and the 2 runners aboard his responsibility, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. And Flande, a 29-year-old out of the Dominican Republic, signed as a minor league free agent with the Rockies this past offseason. Flande now will face Shin-Soo Choo with runners at first and third. Choo, a big night against Kendrick. Doubled and homered. Scored twice, drove in 2 runs. Chance to do more damage here. Ground ball by the dive of LeMahieu into right field, a base hit. Hamilton scores. Going to third is Elvis. He's sliding and ahead of the throw. And Shin-Soo Choo with his 3rd run producing hit of the night makes it a 5-0 Ranger lead.
Choo being very aggressive. Flande coming in. Fastball first pitch, trying to get ahead. Choo's ready for it, waiting on it. Drills a single through that shift. His third hit of the night already.
3 hits, 3 RBI. A triple shy of the cycle for Shin-Soo Choo. Here's Robinson Chirinos. Ball 1. Chirinos 0 for 1. A ground ball to short and a walk. He has scored a run. Matt Harrison getting instructions from Jeff Bannister. The various situations that Matt may come up in. And I have a feeling that it involved what kind of bunt do you want me to lay down?
Yes, that's going to be about it.
Well, and that's not taking anything away from Matt's ability to swing the bat. He certainly can. But his most important role in this game is to pitch, and he's been pitching effectively, and you don't want to do anything to jeopardize that.
The Rangers are being very aggressive on these bases, and you see Elvis, the right fielder Barnes, has the ball when Elvis gets to second base, but Elvis just kept right on going, and that's being very aggressive, not being, crazy on the bases, but just being aggressive. You make that outfielder throw you out if you can. And with the way Elvis runs the bases, that's exactly how he's supposed to do it.
And he talked, Mac, about outfielders playing a little more deeply here at this ballpark. That has to figure into your decision-making process too, right?
It does a little bit, but remember the ball gets out there quicker, so it kind of eliminates them being a little bit deep because it gets there faster. Now where it comes into play, they are deeper, so that means they've got a longer throw. It doesn't change the throw except that it just makes it longer. So Elvis just being aggressive, and I love it. These guys know how to run the bases. They just haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to.
Right.
So this is the Ranger team that we know. They can play this way. They can be effective. And fortunately, they're doing it tonight.
Leading 5-0. Robinson Chirinos looking for more. 2 balls, 2 strikes to count. Flande gets the strikeout. 2 gone. Matt Harrison coming up and just double checking over his shoulder with Jeff Bannister to see if the order still stands. You remember last time up, Matt Harrison watched 6 pitches go by. And leading by 5, I wouldn't really see much reason for him to do anything but the same thing here.
No, there's really no reason for it. Matt's doing something that's never been done before, coming back from this fusion surgery. So let him continue to just go out and pitch and concentrate on getting the job done on the mound.
Yeah, it'd be maybe a little different story if he were a National League pitcher. And there goes Choo from first. He's going to swipe second without a throw. Flande never even looked at him. And Hundley now is going to go out and make sure they are on the same page signs-wise. What are we going to use with the runner at second base? Series of signs. But, if Matt were on a National League team, they might say, okay, we'll go ahead and see if you can swing the bat too along with pitching, because you have to do that in the National League. But when you're only doing it 2 or 3 times a year at most in the American League, nah.
And with a 5-0 lead, there's really no reason for it.
Second and third now with 2 outs. Oh, there one. Flande in a hurry, throws it away. Elvis scores. Choo was coming down the line. The throw behind him, not in time.
Well, how about that? Shows you what we know, huh?
Cross me up. Attaboy, Matt. Well, I'm not sure which is less desirable, swinging the bat or having him run the bases now that he's on first. But he's increased the Ranger lead. It's now 6-0. Flande making that a lot more difficult than it needed to be.
Flande kind of treated this like it was, a regular, well, I won't say regular, but a position player that could run, and not really knowing that Matt wasn't really going to, or he's not a speedster. He just kind of rushed things.
Delino swinging through that Flande offering. Down to the count now, no balls, 2 strikes. Delino, a pair of singles and a double tonight. He is driven into. Got Shin-Soo Choo at third, Matt Harrison at first. Ball, strike 3. Flande gets the 3rd strike past Delino to Shields. Rangers add 2, though. We'll go to the bottom of the 5th inning. It's now the Rangers 6 and the Rockies nothing. Harrison's outing. He's been frustrating for the Colorado Rocky hitters, especially Troy Tulowitzki, who has popped out and struck out against the crafty left-hander. Matt Harrison getting under the skin of the Rockies just a bit.
You'd like to see that. I'd love to see that. Yeah, they're showing their frustration, and that lets the pitcher know, hey, I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to pitch them the same way. See if I can keep them frustrated with themselves.
Matt Harrison, 4 hits is all that he has allowed. 1 walk, 1 strikeout through 4 innings. And he's dealing to Brandon Barnes here to start things off. Barnes, a fly ball to center the first time that he faced Matt Harrison. That changeup that is a strike. 0-2. Barnes not able to check his swing. Barnes 292 now after his 0 for 1. Harrison back to the plate. The Rockies this year have had a lot of difficulty against left-handed pitchers. And that's not diminishing what Matt Harris is doing tonight. He's throwing very well through 4 innings. To center field, right at Delino to Shields, who almost came in a little too far. But that's out number 1. And I'll tell you about that right after we send it back to Dana Larson for a Mazda game break. All right, Dana, thank you. Johan Flande up there for a rare at bat for a relief pitcher in the National League. He's going to bunt and bunts it right back to Matt Harrison. Flande getting down that line pretty well, but Matt throws him out. 2 gone.
Way to field your position, Matt. He's doing everything tonight, isn't he?
He is doing that, Mac. Looks good. I'm going to tell you about the Rockies' record this year. They're just 5-14 against left-handed starters. batting average against right-handers as a team, they're hitting .277. Against left-handers, .255. And that's a significant difference. I mentioned last night of the 100 home runs that the Rockies have hit, 91 of them have come against right-handed pitching.
That's a huge difference.
And one I don't think you would expect looking at the makeup of the lineup. It's pretty well balanced left-handed, right-handed when you have Carlos Gonzalez in there.
Right, you've got Arenado in that cleanup spot. You've got Tulowitzki.
Softly hit in the shallow center. Going out Elvis, he can't get there. Ball falls for a base hit. Charlie Blackmon with his second hit of the night. He's aboard with 2 outs.
Well, Elvis gave it a shot. A little jam shot. A little extra carry from being here. Matt trying to go down and in, left it out up over the plate a little bit. See, Elvis gets a pretty good jump, pretty good read on it. Just not able to get there.
Maybe a little oxygen replacement. It's a long run for high altitude. Well, 5 hits now for the Rockies, 2 of them by Blackmon. DJ LeMahieu, the second baseman, 0 for 2. That's out of play to the right. LeMahieu twice is grounded to Adrian Beltre at third. Rangers on top 6-0. They have out hit the Rockies 11-5. Check swing and the appeal to first, no swing. And according to first base umpire Dan Bellino. Rangers shading LeMahieu around to the right side in the outfield. Infield just about straight away. 2 balls and a strike. Matt now getting up pitch count wise to an area that I'm sure Mike Maddox and Jeff Bannister will keep a close eye on. And that 4-pitch 4th inning, the 8-pitch 3rd inning really helped Matters a lot. That after throwing 49 pitches in the first 2 innings. That's enabled Matt to have a little bit left in the tank as he's gotten here into the 5th. But his outing against Arizona through 78 pitches, they were crammed into 4 innings though. And again, you start having a lot of high pitch innings, and just the total pitch count doesn't necessarily tell you the wear and tear. In the dirt, and the count is now full. So with 2 outs, Blackmon will be moving with the next Harris offering. If LeMahieu gets aboard, Troy Tulowitzki will be next. Harrison reading the signs from Chirinos. Left-hander is set, the payoff pitch. Into center field, a base hit. Blackmon will motor on around to third. Ball comes into second base. Back-to-back 2-out singles. 2 aboard with 2 outs for Troy Tulowitzki.
Matt just trying to get the ball over the plate, make LeMahieu put it in play somehow. Got it a little high in the zone, right down the middle of the plate. LeMahieu hits it right back up the middle for a single.
And that base hit for LeMahieu now extends his hitting streak to 12 consecutive ball games. Rockies now with half a dozen hits. 2 outs here in the 5th. Troy Tulowitzki has been frustrated in his first 2 at-bats tonight by Harrison. He's hit a foul pop-up to Adrian Beltre, and he is struck out. 0 for 2, that batting average currently at .318. Ball 1. Tulowitzki, one of the Rockies, though, that hasn't had much of a problem against left-handers. Has the top average in the National League against left-handed pitching at .397. tell you right there. 2 balls and no strikes. Chirino's going to go out and have a little chat with Matt Harrison. And this, along with all the work that Matt has done going into high altitude, it can sap you in a hurry. Not careful. He's had to cover first base a couple of times, had to get on the bases and run around a little bit. So that wall seems to come up on you a lot faster when you're at high altitude like this. And that pitch outside, 3 balls and no strikes.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. You're just not used to it. You know, to me, it's an advantage for the Rockies to have teams come in here and play in this high altitude, just like it's an advantage for us at home with teams coming in the summertime playing in that heat.
Yep, that's a good comparison. Now 3-1. Rangers play Tulowitzki a couple of steps around to the left. He has great power to all fields. Remember the home run he hit last year here right down the right field line. And strike 2, catches the outside corner. Well, the count is full, and with 2 outs, LeMahieu will be off and moving from first base. Our Fox tracker showing you that last pitch right on the outside corner. Charlie Blackmon down at third will not have the advantage of a running start. Tulowitzki back in now. He is ready to go. Harrison has the sign, a check of first. 3-2 pitch. Line to right. Chu coming in over to his right, slides and makes the catch. Jin-Soo Chu going down to the turf, came up with the more side, and that will do it. No runs, 2 hits, and 2 left. We have finished 5. It's the Rangers 6 and the Rockies nothing. Jackpot is worth $300 and dinner for 2 at Sonic Drive-In. If a Ranger hits a home run during this inning, Debbie Daniels from Cartwright, Oklahoma will win $300. And if a Ranger hits a grand slam this inning, Debbie is going to take home $25,000. You can register at any participating Sonic restaurant. Well, Rougned Odor will start things off for the Rangers here in the 6th inning. This is on top. 6-0. Odor has doubled each of his last 2 times up. And facing the left-hander Flande, takes strike one. Flande back to the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike. Odor now 9 for his last 22 trips to the plate. That's toward the gap in left center field. Blackmon in a hurry, and he reaches out as far as he can and makes the catch. That ball slicing away from Charlie Blackmon, and he stayed with it nicely. 1 gone.
Ball kind of tailed on him. Blackmon kind of gliding over there to the gap and realized, hey, this ball is going to continue to slice. So at the last minute, he lays out for it.
1 up, 1 away. Prince Fielder 0 for 2 with a walk. 1 ball, no strikes. Prince coming in with a 4-game hitting streak. Hit safely in the first 4 games of this road trip. 3rd best average on the road in the American League for Prince at .333 coming into play tonight. Two balls and a strike. One of the parks, though, oddly enough, that Prince hasn't had a whole lot of success in is here at Coors Field. I mean, it's not terrible. He just hit .280 here. But you would expect this kind of ballpark that would really suit him, and that has not been the case statistically anyway.
Yeah, you really would. Just get the ball up in the air here, especially with power hitters. It's typically a home run.
That ball is hit well to dead center field. Blackmon back at the track. Goodbye. As we were saying, a sonic slam winner. $300 for Debbie Daniels in Cartwright, Oklahoma. Courtesy of Prince Fielder and his 15th home run of the year.
Prince was starting to get a little frustrated with the off-speed pitches they've been throwing him. Tried to come in there with a fastball right down the middle of the plate. 425, 430 feet.
And some. Beltre chops one up the middle. Tulowitzki a 360 and a leap, and he throws out Adrian Beltre.
That was a spectacular play. Typically, when you're going in that direction, or you're going to make a spin throw, you're going to step, turn, and then spin. Tulowitzki got to this ball up the middle, caught it, and spun in the air. He was still facing right field when he caught the ball, and he took one step and did a 360 in the air. He made a tremendous play.
How would you even think to do that?
I have no idea. Well, you have to think ahead, first of all.
Yeah.
You've got to know that that's what you've got to do, but then you have to have the ability to do it. Obviously, he's done that play before. That was not the first time, I guarantee it. I haven't seen him do it before, but the way he made that is like he works on that all the time. Tremendous play.
Josh Hamilton, a 2-hopper out to LeMahieu. That will take care of the Rangers in the 6th. But Prince Fielder gets the Rangers on the board and wins Debbie Daniels $300 for Cartwright, Oklahoma resident. After 5.5, 7-0 Rangers. Fans will be treated to a Medical Center Arlington Adrian Beltre bobblehead. Join us to see the Rangers take on the Rays and get your collectible bobblehead. Visit TexasRangers.com or call 972-RANGERS for tickets. Matt Harrison ready to go to work here in the bottom of the sixth inning. Nolan Arenado takes strike one. Arenado, Rosario, and Stubbs, the first three Rockies to face Matt Harrison. Matt has given up 6 hits, no runs. He has walked 1 tonight, struck out 1. Our Kubota Power Stats talking about Matt Harrison. There's the line for you at 5 innings of work, 6 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, 9 groundouts. And that is the most important one as far as Matt is concerned right now.
That's how you pitch here in Colorado. You get those ground balls. You
Yep.
want to keep the ball out of the air as much as you possibly can.
1-2 pitch. It's down the left field line. Hit softly by Arenado, but it's in for a base hit. Hamilton gets to the ball and gets it back in quickly. A leadoff single for Arenado. He is perfect tonight. 2 hits and a walk.
Matt's been going away from Arenado. This time he tries to come in, but it's up in the zone. Arenado, a great hitter. Drills it in the left for a single.
And Spencer Patton up and loosening in that Ranger bullpen. Patton part of that outstanding effort last night from the Ranger pen. 4 innings of shutout hitless baseball. Lilene Rosario takes the changeup outside for ball 1. Rosario twice tonight has grounded out to Elvis Andrus. And if he makes it a trifecta, it will probably be a double play this time. Is out of play down the right side, back into the seats. 1 ball and 1 strike. Rosario, a .282 hitter as he faces Harrison. Matt okays the sign, a check of Arenado at first. Another foul off to the right. Matt up to 88 pitches now. It looks like his stuff has been maintained pretty well tonight.
Yeah, his velocity is still right, 88, 89. I think over, through the course of the night, his command has gotten better.
Call strike 3. There's a little command for you. 89 at the knees on the outside corner. Strikeout number 2 for Matt Harrison.
Matt trying to go down and away and hits his spot right there. See the tracker, Fox tracker gets it right there.
Well, that's what Matt can do so well, that little bit of a cutting action as opposed to the tailing action. Guys, right-handers start seeing that sinker down and away, lay off it a little bit, and Matt comes back with that cutter to the outside corner, and they give up on it. And the normal result is just what happened, called third strike. Drew Stubbs stepping in, fouling off that first pitch. Stubbs 1 out of 2 this evening. With that base hit now, Stubbs up to 169 with a batting average. To Elvis, he will take it to the bag, on to first, double play. Second one turned tonight behind Matt Harrison by the Rangers, and Matt all the way back now that he's getting the double play ball along with everything else. No runs a hit, nobody left. After 6, Rangers 7, Rockies nothing. Shin-Soo Choo for you. How about a double to start the scoring? That was in the Rangers' second inning. He will score Elvis. He got a great jump on that ball. Next time up, leading off the fourth inning. His 12th home run of the year. A blast into the second deck. And for good measure, his next time up, an RBI single. Shin-Soo Choo 3 for 3 tonight. Each hit producing a run. And he has been very supportive of Matt Harrison this evening. Matt Harrison taking it easy on the bench right now. Probably finished the way that Mike Maddox is talking to him about the mechanics of what he was doing. And I think Mike is saying, that's what we wanted to see from you. Go out there and throw the ball like that and build it back on up.
Great outing by Matt so far.
Elvis chops one to Tulowitzki for out number 1. So Elvis 2 for 4 now. And Choo coming up for his 4th at bat.
You know, this is something that Matt can build on from here. You know, and this is a tough place to come in and do it at, you know, to be quite honest. Ball jumps out of here, flies out of here.
Yep.
Matt got 10 ground balls so far tonight. Did exactly what he needed to do, made pitches when he needed to make them. Got a couple of ground ball double plays. I think he got stronger, got better. The more he went, the further into the game he got.
Choo takes a strike from Flande. Yeah, you look back to the first couple of innings, Harrison was at 49 pitches in the first 2 and was still able to get through 6. Chopper up the middle, that's where Tulowitzki is. Coming from down under, and he throws out Choo. First time that Choo has been retired tonight. 2 away for Robinson Chirinos. Fans, the New York Yankees visit Globe Life Park starting Monday, July 27th. They'll be there through Thursday, the 30th. Then the Giants follow July 31st through August 2nd. Great seats still available for these 2 series. Visit TexasRangers.com or call 972-RANGERS to get your seats today. Flande misses outside with a tailing fastball to Chirinos. Robinson 0 for 2 with a walk, a strikeout, and a ground out. One ball and 1 strike. Looking down into the on-deck circle. See Ryan Rua out swinging a bat, so that would be another indicator that Matt Harrison's night has probably concluded. Chopper into the hole. Tulowitzki couldn't find the handle. He was going to make a jump throw, and the ball popped out of his hand as he tried to make the transfer. He would have thrown, if he had gotten Chirinos on that, he would have thrown from 3 different angles in the same inning.
The toughest part on this play is that transfer. Getting to the ball was fairly easy. Getting himself up in the air was easy. But the transfer, that's the toughest part of that play.
Well, the infield single. First base hit of the night for Robinson Chirinos. He is aboard, and Ryan Rua will come up as a pinch hitter for Matt Harrison. Saw Ryan last night, got the start in left field. 1 for 3 with a double last night. That snapped an 0 for 10 drought as he was in. Now hitting at 180. Takes the changeup outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. And Spencer Patton continuing to throw, so it looks like he will be the moundster for the bottom of the 7th. Chopper cut off by Arenado, and they'll take the force at second. So the side retired Rangers get an infield single. We will take the stretch here at Coors Field in Denver. 7-0. Rangers leading the Rockies. Bat, the #1 app for live baseball. At Bat is up to the moment at any moment with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, statcasts, and more. Get MLB.com at Bat for your smartphone or tablet. Well, Ranger fans, all ages, happy about the proceedings here at Coors Field. 7-0. Rangers on top. Matt Harrison finished after 6 more shutout innings against these Rockies. Matt says, I don't know what the big deal is about Coors Field. Just not going to give up a run.
It seems as though he's got it solved for sure.
Does.
10 ground balls. You get ground balls here, you're probably going to, win a ball game or two. And Matt's done that in his 4 outings here.
Well, Spencer Patton will take over, and Patton will face Nick Hundley to start off this 7th inning for the Rockies. Hundley, 1 out of 2, a single and a double play grounder. Patton worked an inning and a third last night. Just allowed 1 hit, or I should say 1 walk, had 1 strikeout. And this is low and outside, 2 balls, no strikes. Patton, one of the 4 relievers in last night's ball game. 3 of them, Patton, Bass, and Sam Freeman. 4 innings of hitless shutout baseball against the Rockies. Gave the Rangers an opportunity to climb back in that ball game, score 7 unanswered runs. Unfortunately, losing it on a walk-off in the bottom of the 9th inning. Two-one pitch. 2-2. Spencer now has worked 5 consecutive outings, allowing just 1 hit in 5 1/3 innings. That check swing, Hundley laying off the pitch inside. It's now a 3-2 count. Hundley hitting 7th in the order, to be followed by the right fielder Brandon Barnes. Patton to the wind, the payoff pitch. We'll come back and try it again. Spencer, a 27-year-old, born and raised in southern Illinois. Urbana was where he was born. Went to school down there, Southern Illinois University. And check swing, ball 4. Thought for a second Tom Halligan was going to throw that right hand up, but he kept it down by his side. Hundley draws the leadoff walk.
Patton trying to go down and away. He hit his spot. Box tracker picks it up. Didn't get the call.
No, a leadoff walk. Now Brandon Barnes for his 3rd at bat. Barnes twice has flied to center field. 1-0. Barnes drew a walk last night facing Spencer Patton. And Spencer now having a little trouble getting the ball where he wants it. Robinson Chirinos going to go out there and have a little chat with him.
Just calm him down a little bit. Remind him about something he may or may not be doing. Just to get him back on track. Break it up a little bit.
You know, it kind of dovetails, Mac, with what we were talking about before about the negativity you get into with yourself sometimes. Catcher can go out, and if he can just get the pitcher to forget about the bad thing that just happened and focus on the good thing that's about to happen, he's done his job. That's a lot easier said than done, especially with some of us hard-hitted pitchers. But
well, it's always good to have a catcher that understands that and doesn't
right.
wait too long. He doesn't wait 2 or 3 hitters in before he goes out there and says something.
Yeah. Doesn't wait till the manager's already taking the ball from you and pat you on the back on the way out. Base hit to right field and stayed up, and Barnes able to shoot it through the right side. Oh, a walk and a single. That's how the 7th inning opens up, and now we're going to have a pinch hitter for Flande. The pitcher will be Ben Paulson. Paulson had the game-winning base hit last night. Walk-off single that propelled the Rockies to an 8-7 win. Jeff Bannister scratching out his lineup card and putting Paulson in for the pitcher. Paulson a .289 average for the year. 2 aboard, nobody out here in the bottom of the 7th. And Patton drops that breaking ball in for strike 1. Paulson 2 out of 9 coming off the bench as a pinch hitter. Nothing and 2. Game winner by Paulson last night off of Tanner Sheppers, after Sheppers had given up a couple of soft singles to open up the 9th inning. Chopper up the middle. Odor to Andrus, back to first in time for the double play. How about that? And Elvis got upended. Brandon Barnes got down there right in his lap. Odor just gave him a little flip that I don't think Elvis was expecting.
No, I think Elvis was expecting Odor to go ahead and tag the bag, and all of a sudden he saw a flip come underneath his arm, and he knew what to do with it, but kind of hung him up a little bit. Odor, nice backhand, and I know Elvis was thinking, okay, you're right there, you're going to take it.
Yeah.
But didn't.
Well, that's the 3rd double play turned by the Rangers tonight. And Elvis the most surprised of anybody about that 3rd one.
He's an acrobat out there. He got out of the way. He didn't get touched. That was nice.
So on to 3rd when Hundley. He's there now with 2 outs. And Charlie Blackmon takes strike 1. Blackmon 2 for 3 tonight. Couple of singles, once in the 1st and 1 in the 5th. And strike 2. Kind of like last time when Spencer Patton came in and had trouble, walked the first man he faced. He ended up retiring in the next 3. Keone Kela getting loose in the Ranger bullpen. Spencer settling in nicely here, and he gets Blackmon on 3 pitches. And he shows you a little bit of emotion coming off the mound that time.
I like it.
No runs, a hit, a walk, and 1 man left thanks to the double play. We finished 7. It's the Rangers by 7. Whataburger on Sycamore School Road in Fort Worth. Don't miss this chance to win great prizes and to meet one of your favorite Rangers, Delano DeShields, at Whataburger. Well, the Rangers leading by a 7-0 count. We head to the top of the 8th inning. And Rex Brothers, the left-hander, has come in to take over for the Rockies. Brothers becomes the 3rd pitcher tonight, used by Colorado. Left-hander will face the top of the Ranger order. Delano DeShields 3 for 4 this evening. And he hammers one to left center field. That is down, and he's going to be able to run for a while. Up against the wall, Blackman gets the ball back in, and stopping at third with an easy 3-bagger, Delano DeShields. Delano with his 4th hit of the night. He is just a home run shy of the cycle.
Delano swinging the bat well, being aggressive. First pitch from Brothers. Outside part of the plate, yanks it into the gap in left center field, or into the valley in left center field. And he's not really running.
No.
He's got more than that. He knew that was going to be an easy triple.
Delano DeShields, a new career high 4-hit game for him. This is a young man that was kind of floundering at Double-A last year for the Astros organization. And Rangers got him in a Rule 5 draft, and if they were going to keep him, he had to stay in the big leagues all year long. And the question was, in spring training, how much playing time he would get. Well, that question, like many other baseball questions, has been answered by the play on the field.
You know, the more consistent playing time he got, the more Bannister kept putting him in the lineup. He had to. He was getting the job done, getting on base, stealing bases, playing solid defense, igniting the team. So he earned a spot in this starting lineup every day somewhere, especially at the top of the order.
Odor fouling back the next pitch from Brothers. It's 2 balls, 2 strikes. Odor tonight is 2 for 4, a pair of doubles. Brothers back to him. Little looper out into left field. Coming on is Stubbs, able to make the catch. Tagging at third, DeShields will score easily. And he turns a little looper into left field into a sacrifice fly for Rougned Odor, who gets the RBI. It's an 8-0 Ranger lead. Well, as we have found out, you don't have to hit the ball very far into the outfield to get a sacrifice fly with Delano running.
No, you really don't. You just want to put the ball in play maybe 5 feet past the infield, and he's probably going to score.
Prince Fielder found that out last homestand. Hit one, I'm going to say 170 feet from home plate, where it was caught by the shortstop. Turned it into a sacrifice fly. Sacrifice pop-up, I'm sorry. Well, the Rangers now have scored 15 of the last 16 runs in this series. Prince Fielder takes a strike at the knees.
See, Odor got a pitch down, just trying to get the ball in the air. Hits it out in the air. Deep enough for DeShields to score.
And press going the other way. Oh, my.
Again.
Fielder with his 40th multiple hit game of the season. He had a home run last time up, singles the other way this time up. And he is moving into historical realms of the Rangers franchise.
It's a pitch not necessarily away from him. He just took it the other way. A couple strikes. He's just trying to get on base.
Fielder with 40 multiple hit games now. He had matched Pudge Rodriguez for the second most multiple hit games after 92 games. It was 39 of them. And the leader, Michael Young, had 45 back in 2004. But Prince keeps adding them on, and we're going to have to update this as time goes on each day.
I think so.
Man. Adrian Beltre takes outside. Beltre's probably had the 3 of the 4 hardest hit balls in this ball game, and he doesn't have a thing to show for it.
Not a hit.
Coming off a 3-hit night last night. Takes that one a bit low from Brothers. 3 balls, no strikes.
Drilled one to the right fielder, drilled one to the left fielder, hit one up the middle.
Yeah. He's tried every area of the ballpark, in fair territory anyway. He hadn't tried the seats yet. And ball 4, he'll take a walk. Well, there's a 4-pitch walk. 1 out, 2 aboard. Josh Hamilton coming to the plate. And before Josh steps in, let's send it back to Dana Larson for a Mazda game break. Who says pitchers can't hit?
Thank you for that, Dana. We appreciate
you needed that, didn't you, Matt?
Yes, I did. I just hope everybody in the truck remembers we still have some game left.
Yeah.
So get off your, get back up in your seats.
First pitch to Hamilton, low and outside. Josh 1 for 4 tonight. An infield single in the 5th inning. Josh at 239 with the average. Got Prince Fielder at second, Adrian Beltre at first. 1 out here in the 8th. Tapped out in front of home plate, and Hundley throws him out. Runners advance. Second and third now, but with 2 outs for Elvis Andrus. Elvis 2 for 4 this evening. He has singled twice and scored each time that he reached base. Taking strike 1 from Rex Brothers. Well, Elvis, the average now up to 246. Just off the outside corner. Rangers 8 runs on 15 hits. Second time on this road trip they've thrown up 15 hits in a ball game. Remember the second night down in Houston. First night, I'm sorry, 15 hits but only 2 runs. A little bit different story tonight. Rosario snares that off his left knee and takes it to the bag. That'll do it. Rangers do score a run though on a couple of hits. They lead 2 after 7.5, 8-0 Texas. Soto, selected by the multitude of judges that we have. And this one comes to us from Matthew. We appreciate it. Great shot at the ballpark. And if you'd like to have yours sent in for the possibility of being selected, just use hashtag Southwest Data StrongFan. And your photo might be selected to be aired during one of our upcoming broadcasts, brought to you by the folks at T-Mobile. Keone Kela has come in to the ballgame now to take over in the 8th inning. Kela facing DJ LeMahieu, and Keone, his 44th appearance of the year. He is right there at the top of the American League in appearances. Rangers trying to kind of monitor how often he's used and how much he works when he is used. Keone showing no signs of backing away stuff-wise. That last fastball at 99. It's not the altitude either.
That is a 99-mile-an-hour fastball anywhere.
Backed off to 98. Keone worked down in Houston the first game down there. Just threw an inning, had a walk and a strikeout. League hitting at 267 against him. 2 balls, 2 strikes. LeMahieu tonight 1 for 3. Single to center field his last time up. That was in the 5th inning. Matt Harrison started, worked the first 6 innings, 7 hits and shutting out the Rockies. 1 walk and 2 strikeouts. 3-2 now. Spencer Patton came in and gave up a hit and a walk in his inning of work. No damage done. And Keone Kela now trying to come back and get LeMahieu. The count is full. Robinson Chirinos leaning one way and Keone Kela leaning the other, and they'll get together in the middle. Payoff pitch. Elvis circling it, jump throw, and Prince can't dig it out. He gets by him, and LeMahieu will be aboard on what will probably be an infield single.
Elvis made a good effort. Looked like the ball kind of got caught in the transfer there. Bounces it across to Prince. Not able to come up with it.
So LeMahieu aboard with nobody out. Troy Tulowitzki now will come up. Tulowitzki 0 for 3 tonight, and that streak of reaching base on the line, possibly right here. That last play, by the way, is going to be ruled an error on Elvis Andrus. That's kind of a tough error.
It's a very tough error.
First error committed by the Rangers. Tulowitzki, as we have talked about, 41 consecutive games reaching base. He's hit safely in 38 of those games. He's been introduced to the Keone Kela curveball. That severe downer. Been fun to watch Keone develop this year, going from a guy that was throwing 93, 94, at times 95 early in the year with basically just fastball, to working in that curveball to where he has enough confidence in to throw it first pitch to a lot of people. And getting up to 96, 97, and in a case like tonight, 99.
Yeah, you typically don't see that out of a young pitcher, to be able to develop pitches at the big league level and still have success.
And he hasn't given up on that changeup either. He's still working with that. We'll see him break that out every now and again. But that's a pitch that the changeup that he didn't have prior to last winter. So that's in the works. 1-2 pitch. Double play ground ball. Elvis to Odor. Back to fielder. 6-4-3. That takes care of the error that allowed LeMahieu to reach. And there are 2 gone for Nolan Arenado. 4th Ranger double play turn tonight.
Nice job by Keller. Gets a nice pitch right down the middle of the plate. Keeps it down. Tulo grounded it to short. 6-4-3. Pitcher's best friend.
And barring any kind of a miracle rally by the Rockies, it would appear that Tulowitzki's consecutive game streak with reaching base will finish at 41. Arenado's streaks have not diminished at all. He is 2 for 2 with a walk, a double, and a single. With the batting average now up to 292. Keller with the 1-0 pitch. Couldn't stop his swing. Arenado also introduced to pitch down low from Keone. That might have been that power changeup. The 1-1. 2 balls and a strike.
Or fastball.
Yeah. Off speed, and he drops that one over. If you're facing Keone Kela now for the first time, you've got to say, hey, how does this guy ever get hit?
That hammer there, the changeup,
yeah.
98, 99 mile an hour fastball. Well, I guess the answer to that is not very often.
Not very often, yeah, and not very hard very often. He hasn't given up a run. No, he gave up 1 run. I take it back in the San Diego series. That's the only one he's given up in the last several weeks. Got him swinging. Right. Arenado completely overmatched as he has gone on strikes. Keone Kela faces 3, gets 3 outs. On to the 9th inning. 8-0 Rangers.
Hoping to hold on to this one and have a chance to win this series when they play Game 3 against the Rockies. That will be tomorrow, and AT&T Uverse reminds you that the game is in the afternoon tomorrow, 2 o'clock start time in Texas, 1:30 for Rangers Live. And it's Martin Perez trying to pick up where Matt Harrison left off today. Matty with his second start since coming back from the disabled list. That's the same scenario for Martin Perez against Troy Tulowitzki and the rest of the Rockies tomorrow. We'll bring it to you tomorrow live from Coors Field. Guys, back up to you.
All right, John, thank you very much. Shin-Soo Choo leading off here in the top of the 9th inning. Rangers on top, 8-0, and a big part of that due to the heroics of Shin-Soo Choo, the man at the plate. Choo 3 hits tonight, single, double, and home run. He has driven in 3, and he has scored a couple. Hits this one well to center field. Blackman is going back at the track. It's off the wall, and this might be the cycle for Choo. He is going for 3, and he's going to be in with a dive. Shin-Soo Choo with the cycle. He caps it off with a 9th inning triple to center field. Shin-Soo Choo in the Ranger record books now. Adrian Beltre also has a cycle as a Ranger. How about this one?
How about that? It's a pitch right down the middle and drills it 415 feet away. Blackman goes up against the wall and kicks off, and that was all he needed right there, 415 feet. Around and got his cycle. Nice job, Choo.
Say one thing, when Choo breaks out of a slump, he breaks out of it.
He does.
And we're talking about 6 for 8 on this trip. And Chirino's trying to bring him home and swings through it. So Choo 4 for 5 tonight. That's the first hit that he's had that didn't produce a run. And we'll see if Chirinos can bring him home. Robinson 1 for 3 with an infield single. 2 balls and a strike. First Rangers cycle since September 23rd of 2013 when Alex Rios stirred the trick against the Houston Astros. It's the 8th cycle in Ranger franchise history. Three and 1 to Chirinos. Payoff pitch. Descalso dives it short. The ball goes off his glove. It's a base hit. In to score is Choo. Robinson Chirinos, the RBI single. It's a 9-0 Ranger lead. Daniel Descalso, who came in to start this inning in place of Troy Tulowitzki. And the ball finds you.
Going to get to you in a hurry. With his second hit tonight. Yanks this one over in the hole.
Well, Chirinos drives in his 29th. Choo scores for the 3rd time tonight. And Leonis Martin came in defensively last half inning, hitting on number 9 slot now. And he takes outside for ball 1. Martin, a .219 average, and he pops up the next pitch. Arenado near the bag at 3rd. That is out number 1. Now back to the top of the Ranger order. It'll be Delino to Shields. Take a look at the Rangers' upcoming schedule, brought to you by Progressive. Rangers and Rockies finish up here tomorrow afternoon. It's a 2 o'clock start, Texas time. Off day on Thursday, on to Anaheim to take on the red-hot Los Angeles Angels. Starting Friday night, continuing Saturday night, and ending Sunday afternoon. Then the Rangers come back a long homestand with the Yankees, the Giants, and the Astros. And the pitching change underway. Rafael Betancourt is going to be summoned from the Rockies bullpen. We'll take a timeout with this pitching change. We're back right after this. Hit for the cycle. First Ranger to do so in almost 2 years. Big part of that 9-0 lead the Rangers enjoy. And he is rehydrating himself. He has worked overtime tonight. Shin-Soo Choo. Rafael Betancourt, the new pitcher, on hand for the Rockies. Betancourt, veteran right-hander, 40 years of age. And he's coming back from all kinds of arm miseries. First pitch to Delino DeShields is inside for ball one. Betancourt coming back from Tommy John surgery. In fact, a couple of times, I believe. He has battled injury and assorted injuries over the last several years. Fighting his way back to the big leagues with the Rockies. 2-0 the count to DeShields. Now 2-1. 2013, Betancourt was on the DL. He had a right groin strain, then appendicitis, and he had a right elbow strain, and then he finally declared free agency. He was trying to get away from the injury bug.
That was about the only way to do it.
Man. Sean Tollison loosening in the Ranger pen. It's been a while since Sean had gotten out to the mound, so he'll probably get an inning of work here tonight. 2-2 to DeShields. Got him swinging. Betancourt with the strikeout, 2 away. Delino finish a 4-hit night, 4 for 6. And Rougned Odor will get another at bat. Odor 2 for 4 with a sacrifice fly. Pair of doubles tonight. .259 the average for Rougned. strike one from Betancourt. Right-hander back to the plate. Strike two. Note in the Ranger information packet today about the ball club. On this road trip prior to tonight, the club was hitting 290. Hit to a 290 average. They had scored a total of 16 runs in 4 games. How in the world do you hit 290 and score an average of 4 runs a game? Tough to do.
Very tough.
But they've turned it around tonight. They've gotten 9 runs on 17 hits here this evening. Thanks in no small part to the man in your picture, Shin-Soo Choo. He and Delano DeShields have each garnered 4 hits tonight. Choo hitting for the cycle.
Delano just a home run away from the cycle.
Yep. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
And I'd have to say, if there was any place he had a good chance of hitting one, Colorado would be the place.
That'd be right at the top, wouldn't it? If not out of the park, then inside the park. The 2-2 pitch coming to Odor. Popped up. Middle of the diamond. Descalso calling everybody off and makes the catch. That will do it. Rangers get a run on a couple of hits and leave one. We're going to the bottom of the 9th inning. It's the Rangers 9 and the Rockies nothing. Follows Matt Harrison, Spencer Patton, and Keone Kella. That trio had shut out the Rockies for 8 innings, and Tollison will try to work the 9th and preserve this shutout. Going to Willeen Rosario. First pitch outside to him, ball 1. Rosario 0 for 3, a couple of ground outs and a strikeout. Ball 2. Tollison, the Ranger closer, fires a strike. Haven't seen Sean in a ball game since Got his 14th save. That was that middle game of the Houston series. Did give up a couple of runs in that ball game, but still was able to close out the save. Gave up a home run to Hank Conger. This is high and away, and it's 3-1.
Sean's done a great job in the closer's role, which is something he didn't start the season at.
Yeah, 14 out of 15. I think qualifies as getting it done pretty much every time out.
First 13 in a row? Yeah, that's pretty good. A guy who never had a save opportunity.
Right. Yeah, it was 123 games into his big league career before he had a save opportunity, and then he reeled off 13 straight in the span of just about a month, maybe 5 weeks. 3-2 pitch. Line to right. Chu in, now back. One gone. Next will be Drew Stubbs. Last shutout at home for Walt Weiss's crew was July 4th of last year. Dodgers turned the trick. 85 games since then here at home. Ball one to Stubbs. Stubbs 1 for 3 tonight. Donaldson's next pitch. Rounded to Elvis's left. Nice pickup and a throw on the run to Rosales. 2 gone. Now Sean Donaldson will face Nick Hundley.
Donaldson coming in, throwing strikes. Getting a little bit of work in. You don't typically see him in a 9-0 ball game.
Rangers this year have thrown 4 shutouts. Trying for number 5 in the most unlikely of settings against the most unlikely opponent. Rockies came into this game second in the National League in scoring, 403 runs. That's fouled out of play. They were first in batting average with 272. They were third on base percentage at 323. Matt Harrison, Spencer Patton, Keone Kela, and now Sean Tolleson have blanked the Rockies through 8 2/3 on 8 hits. The 1-1 pitch. Hundley waiting as Tolleson gets set. A check swing bounder foul outside first. Eric Young making a nice play on it.
Talk about wheels. He could get down that line.
Oh, mercy. Two balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Ace is empty in the 9th. To Elvis. On to Rosales, and that is a winner. Rangers come back after a heartbreaker last night behind Matt Harrison and company tonight. They blank Colorado. 9-0 is the final. Matt Harrison gets his first win in over a year, and he did it in fine fashion tonight. Had some help, a lot of help from his friends, but 6 shutout innings for Matt Harrison. 7 hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. And Shin-Soo Choo getting the job done offensively with the cycle. He and the liner to Shields, 4-hit nights for the Rangers. Rangers pile up 17 hits tonight as they run away from the Rockies. Rangers scoring early and often,